Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today and welcome to this edition of Craft Chats. Today we're going to be looking at alternative kiln and firing processes featured in both James Watkins' exhibition. He is our recent Texas Master, as well as Forms of Inheritance, the work of Anna Mayer, who is featured in our main gallery. And I want to take a moment to wish everyone a happy Earth Day. I hope and I thank everybody for taking time to listen, take some time out of your day with Craft Chats. And I hope too you'll be able to give yourself maybe a few minutes today to be outside as well and really take a breather for yourself. So without further ado, we're going to get started. I am really grateful to Maria Lisa Hegg, who's going to be helping us with some of the filming today. Thanks, Maria Lisa. And just so that we can be safe, I'm going to put my mask back on, but I wanted to at least say hello without mask for a moment before we start the program. So today we're really going to focus on different firing techniques and surface techniques that both ceramicists, James Watkins and Anna Mayer, are using for their works in the exhibition. And Maria Lisa, would you mind maybe giving us a close-up on James's bottle form? And I'm going to go ahead and add a spotlight so that we can really see those lovely details of this piece. I also am going to put up a PowerPoint that I prepared that will kind of help us unpack James's process. So I guess I should mention too, just a little bit of background. James Watkins is our recent Texas Master. He is based in Lubbock, Texas. And I would be remiss if I didn't plug this incredible publication that he developed in coordination with Paul Andrew Wandless, who is based in Chicago, Illinois. And later in the presentation, I'll be happy to drop in a link to where you can purchase this book. This book is really, really helpful. It shows a number of different alternative kiln and firing techniques that are both cost-effective and efficient. James and Paul do a fantastic job of really making some of these techniques accessible to anyone who's interested. And so it's just such a great resource. And in fact, a lot of the information that you'll be hearing today is information that I learned directly from James and Paul. So a big, big thank you to both of them. So James worked with me to prepare a wonderful slideshow that really unpacks his saggar firing process. And this is a technique that was originally developed in China that incorporates a container that traditionally would have been made out of clay called a saggar in the firing process. And James and Paul note that this term actually, when translated, means safeguard. It's called that because this type of firing technique actually puts bisque-fired clay into a jar or a container to safeguard it. For instance, if an anagama kiln, a wood-firing kiln, was used, it protects it from having any effects from wood ash. And it also really helps create these beautiful surfaces on the pieces as well. James is actually doing something different than the traditional clay saggar that one would use. He's actually working with a metal container, and you'll get to see a little bit of that later. But again, that's something that's a lot more accessible for folks to use. And this type of firing does not actually use any form of glaze. I'm going to take you quickly through this process. So, and you can see the bottle form that Maria Lisa is showing that we have on view to show you the finished product. But Here, first, James kind of begins by marking off his designs onto the surface of his disc-fired bottle form that you see here. And James first disc fires to about 1900 degrees Fahrenheit. You'll see these beautiful geometric patterns that he draws with a protractor that he then masks off with blue tape. And then the next step after and here too, I guess I should also point out, he often uses stickers as well to help contribute to some of the surface design that you will inevitably see to create those unique patterns. And James then moves on to painting a thin layer of what's called terra sigillata. And this is a type of liquid clay slip that he paints onto the vessel. Terra sigillata, this particular type of slip is using a really, really fine clay with a higher water ratio. Excuse me, just one moment. Oh, the video is not spot lit. Okay. Excuse me for just one moment. Okay, you should be able to see the video now. Thank you so much, Maria Lisa. So now you can really see these beautiful surfaces, designs that James has created. You can see the geometric shapes on some of these details. So after he paints it, the terra sigillata onto the surface, he then buffs away the slip with actually just a regular plastic trash bag or grocery bag. He finds this technique to be one of the best techniques that he recommends. And then he removes the stickers and the tape. He then recommends wrapping the piece in just commercial toilet paper. He's found that the way that paper is processed really helps add to the overall atmospheric effect during the firing process. And so you see him then putting that, after it's wrapped, into a metal container, which he likes to use popcorn containers, which you can see here that he's putting in. And then he can actually stack multiple containers with multiple pieces inside into his electric kiln, which you see here. Then once the electric kiln reaches 1500 degrees Fahrenheit, this allows the toilet paper to burn inside. He then removes the can, and you can see that because of a carbon-rich environment, so an environment with all that natural material such as the toilet paper burns, it creates a really beautiful, striking gunmetal surface, which you can see from the pieces down below. So James is experimenting with a number of different types of firing processes, and I wanted to show this piece. It's the teapot with a hollow twisted handle, and Maria Lisa is going to show us what it looks like in the exhibition space so we can get some really nice details. But James is really resourceful, and also too, what I really love about his work is he really incorporates a sense of place into his work. So for instance, in Lubbock, Lubbock is prone to numerous dust storms, and this is a beautiful photograph that James shared with us by Ann McDonald of that dust storm, and you can see that red dust blowing into the Lubbock area. And so look at how well that translates onto the surface of this teapot with a hollow twisted handle. So you can see that James is actually, for this particular piece, and for many of his pieces, including the bottle form that we saw earlier, he actually collects dust once a year from an art storage unit that he has. And then he uses that really fine dust to make his own terra sigillata. slip, which he then incorporates and paints onto the surfaces of his bisque-fired pieces. And so this is an interesting differentiation of firing process. Here, he's actually working with an oxygen-rich environment. And it's because of this oxygen-rich environment that produces this really beautiful red-orange color that you see. And I'll also note a really nice detail in this piece too is that James has also worked with placing horsehair onto the surface of the piece to really, just one second. Yes?
I think we're also having a spotlight issue with the video. I apologize to all the audience members.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Zoom throws us a new curveball every day.
Let's see, I'm gonna remove my spotlight and let's see, are we able to see? I think we are.
I think we're good. I apologize. It required me to unmute.
Okay.
Back to it.
Okay, thank you so much, Maria Lisa, and thank you all for bearing with us through the technical difficulties. So Maria Lisa, would you mind just giving a couple of little details then of the spotlight of the teapot? Wonderful. So, and you can really kind of see the beautiful horsehair on the surface as well. But I really like how James is working with the materials that are, you know, in his own backyard, in his own space, so to speak, and really using those materials that are readily available to experiment in these really beautiful ways through these atmospheric firings. So I'm going to move on. And Maria Lisa, would you mind giving us a close-up of another bottle form? This particular bottle form was made in 2018, and I incorporated this image that James shared with me of scaffolding that is present in Hong Kong, China. This was a huge inspiration for this piece. I should mention that James was inspired by this bamboo scaffolding during a residency that he had in China in 2002. One thing that we aren't going to get into today, but James has traveled extensively throughout various parts of Asia, and so you'll see a lot of inspiration from his travels in his work, such as you can see in this piece. But he's using another firing technique here, and this is a form of aluminum foil saggar. So to get these beautiful kind of rich pink and red surface colors, he's actually working to wrap a web of copper wire around the vessel, and then he sprays the piece with a chemical called ferric chloride. Once that is heavily coated, he then adds salt and sawdust, and then he wraps the entire piece in heavy aluminum foil, which creates its own form of saggar. And he fires it to 1500 degrees Fahrenheit. That kind of gives it this beautiful, rich color that you see. And the copper wire is what's helping really kind of give you that silhouette or that feeling of that beautiful bamboo scaffolding that he was inspired by. And I should note for all of us ceramic lovers out there that he doesn't recommend using this chemical in an electric kiln, just because the salt that he uses has a potential to corrode different components of the kiln. So I just wanted to mention that. But again, another plug to get his book, and you'll learn all of those disclaimers in his book. So moving on, I wanted to really take a moment to look at some of his beautiful fumed wares. And I wanted to start off by showing this piece, The Sky, from his Sky Meets Built Form series. In 2005, James received a senior Fulbright scholarship, which allowed him to travel to Vietnam, where he helped create a ceramics program there. And while he was there, he traveled to many different temples. And one of the temples that he traveled to was in Laos, where he saw this beautiful golden Buddhist temple, Pha That Muang. And it spurred his, experimentation with these beautiful, lustrous fumed surfaces. And so I wanted to show you this particular piece since it is kind of you can see the beautiful temple form that he's replicating on the surface of this platter. But then I want to also turn to some of his newer work, which are these really beautiful bottle forms. This is a bulbous bottle form where he's also using this fumed process. And just to say a little bit about this process, he kind of learned about the technique from a notable glass and ceramic artist from the studio craft movement. His name was Biz Little. This is a type of vapor glazing technique, and it's very much inspired by a similar technique that's used in glass to create these beautiful pearlescent surfaces, which you can see very much translates here with clay. And James is doing something unique with these pieces. So he's actually using a precious metal luster. So he's working with gold luster in this work. And in order to create, more color variation during the fumed glazing process. So to give you an idea of how he does this, he misfires the piece, and then he uses a spray gun to coat the form and fires it to 1945 degrees Fahrenheit. And then he wraps the form in a baling wire, which you see here in the PowerPoint, along with broken glass. And it's in these areas that create these beautiful silhouettes that you're seeing, such as what Maria Lisa is showing us now. That's really unique to James and his practice. And I should also note that this type of fuming technique, because of the way that it's working with what's called stannous chloride, which is introduced to the ceramic chamber when it cools down to about 850 degrees, when it's reacting with the precious metal luster, that's what's giving you these beautiful, lustrous, rainbow, iridescent surfaces that you're seeing now. And I will mention that, James does encourage people to use great caution if you were to try this technique on your own. Stannous chloride itself is very toxic, and so he takes all of the necessary precautions to wear proper ventilation, mask, as well as, putting the stannous chloride into the chamber and closing it real quick, and just making sure that he can do that safely. But what beautiful results it renders. So I hope this gives you a little bit of background on some of James's alternative firing techniques. And if you'd like to learn further, I highly encourage you to buy his and Paul's book, Alternative Kilns and Firing Techniques. So Maria Lisa, if you don't mind, I'd love for us to be able to move into the main gallery. And so I want to take a moment to speak about forms of inheritance, Anna Mayer's work. Anna Mayer is based in Houston currently, and she teaches at the University of Houston. And it's a real pleasure to work with Anna as well. And I think as we're thinking about Earth Day today, I think there are a lot of different themes that really resonate with us on this day in terms of Anna and her practice, and really James as well, especially how James is really paying homage to the materials that he's collecting and the various places that he's visited, and incorporating that into his clay surfaces. But here, what we are looking at with Anna's work, Anna's really kind of giving us space to reflect and to mourn the loss of our environment as a result of kind of the decisions that we as humans have made over generations of time, and how that's affected the spaces that we live in, as well as how our decisions today will ultimately affect future generations and the environment. And so what you see here is a piece from her Fireful of Fear series. And I wanted to incorporate this image of the tablet that Mary-Lisa is showing you currently. It says, store these records away from your home in a safe deposit box or other secure place. And this is just one of many different phrases that Anna has written onto these BIS-fired tablets. And I really, this particular phrase resonates with me today because I think that, you know, it's this thought that in order for something to be safe, it shouldn't be in your home, that it needs to be safeguarded in some other way, ultimately then indicating that your home itself may not be safe. And that is really relating to the series where Anna has buried 12 tablets around different canyons in Malibu and Ventura counties in California, with the understanding that over time, these pieces might have a chance to be fired a second time through wildfire. And so this project started in 2008. Anna then reflects on this project annually and really kind of checks in with how she's feeling and how she's relating to this work as the years pass on. But then, you know, once there has been wildfire, she then goes and tries to find these pieces and retrieve them from the landscape. And in fact, in 2018, the Woolsey fire swept over a large expanse of space in Ventura and Malibu counties and actually did fire 6 of the 12 tablets that you see. And we were lucky enough to have 3 of the tablets on view, which I highly encourage you to come see in person. And I want to just take a moment to look at all of the really hauntingly beautiful details that have been produced from these atmospheric firings of having these tablets buried in the landscape. You might think about, you know, what does, you know, 10 years, which from 2008 to 2018 when this fire occurred, what might have built up over these pieces over time. And in fact, once they've been fired, you can actually see that there's still these remnants of ash and dirt collected on these surfaces. And it's also about, too, thinking about how the natural materials of these tablets' surroundings have really affected the color and the surface texture that you see on these tablets. You know, I think it's really important for us to take a moment to think about, you know, how, you know, these different natural disasters that occur and that seem to be occurring more and more really affect our environment and also our own safety and health. I think many of us can really think about the many different incidents that have happened in Houston over the years as well, where Anna lives. So really thinking about some of the effects of the hurricanes, the freeze this past year, and really kind of thinking about climate change on a larger scale. But these pieces really, I think, give us an opportunity to really kind of have a personalized connection to these events in a way. And they're there for us to witness really kind of how our sense of place and environment is affected over time. So Mary-Lisa, would you mind moving on to the morning wear area? Thank you. So I wanted to get to one particular piece in the center of the space. Anna's really, I think, making time to really kind of think about her own sense of place and experiences with the different landscapes that she's lived in her lifetime. And I wanted to show you this particular piece. It's part of her morning wear series, but Anna has actually collected different samples of clay, which she's called gleam clay, that she's taking from the surface of different areas that she's lived in. So I wanted to point out in the PowerPoint that you see on the left, there's an image of Anna with her hands muddy. And that particular clay that you see is the brownish green clay that's evident on the detail that Maria-Lisa is showing. That particular clay was sourced from Nyland, California. And this particular clay comes from, Nyland is in Southern California, and I'm gonna take a moment to see if I can share my entire screen so you can kind of get a sense of where Nyland is. So just one moment. So here you can see that Nyland is here to the bottom right near the Salton Sea. And over the years, this particular sea has really kind of seen a high level of drought. And so in turn, that has created, I wanted to also show you nearby in Calipatria, there are these, the Davis shrimp seafield, courtesy of Atlas Obscura, but these created these mud pots where really kind of, it's, I think, a collection of carbon dioxide that's really kind of built up beneath the surface. It's having these mud pots belch up from the ground. And so that's part of the material that Anna is collecting and then using in her firing process. And she's using a really high firing to create kind of this molten liquid surface, almost kind of looks like a glaze of sort, but it is in fact just the surface of that clay body that that gleam clay that she's collected there. And that's been mixed with another type of clay that she's collected from her hometown in Houston. She took a number of students to different construction sites in the city, and I'm going to share my screen and show you that. Just one moment. So here you can see her and the students collecting that, and that's what's creating that beautiful red clay that you see. She's having to use a more low-fired process because this particular clay, you know, it has a lot of impurities that has been run off from the construction site. So you're getting bits of plaster in there that would ultimately affect the firing of this clay body itself. But this one particular piece that you're seeing here is really lovely because it's incorporating different clay that she's gleaned from multiple places that she's been as kind of a collective reflection on her experience and kind of almost like a diary of sorts of her experience of different landscapes that she's bringing together here. And this is part of a larger body of work where Anna has created what's called morning wear, where she's actually crushing up porcelain dinnerware that she's inherited and repurposing that dinnerware by really kind of using her hands to incorporate the shards of porcelain onto the surface of these clay bodies. And it's really kind of a reflection in part of thinking about Victorian morning wear and how in the Victorian era, for instance, one was expected to wear black during a period of grieving and then slowly kind of start incorporating white into one's clothing over time. But these particular pieces really are kind of a representation of Anna's grief for the landscape. And I wanted to just point out one final firing process that Anna's using, which dates back all the way, and I'm going to end my slideshow. It dates all the way back to the 12th century. Anna's using a red clay from Texas for this, but she's using a process called obvara firing, which also has a name. Sometimes it's called Baltic raku because this particular process originated from Eastern Europe in the 12th century. And I have a video that I'd like to show you of this particular process that Anna is working with a slurry that she's making out of yeast, flour, sugar, and water. And she was able to give us a video of this firing. So what's producing these beautiful black surfaces with the red clay here, we're gonna watch her. She's already bisfired the clay body, so you can see that in the kiln here. She's using tongs, and these are some of her funeral fringe forms, like what Maria-Lisa is showing us. She's mixing up the slurry that's already in that red trash can and just very quickly dunking the piece while it's hot into the trash can. And then she hovers the piece over another container of water. And then once she's got the atmosphere that she really likes, she then quickly dunks it into the water and it stops the burning process. So, you know, one might also kind of think about how we blanch vegetables. You know, we get them hot for a few minutes and then we use ice water to stop that process. It's kind of similar to that in a sort of way. But this particular technique was originally used to seal porous surfaces so that one could then potentially hold liquid, cook with the ceramic surface, and Anna's using it for this atmospheric firing effect, but it really produces these beautiful, beautiful results. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And let's see, I'm going to add spotlight for myself. Here you can see these beautiful details Maria-Lisa is showing where you can actually see some of the porcelain shards of the dinnerware that Anna's incorporated into this particular mourning wear piece. That's her freestanding funeral fringe. And you can see the beautiful atmospheric quality that the obvara firing yields on this piece in particular. So I'm really hoping that this kind of gives you a little bit of an inside look into the different firing processes that these artists are using, and really thinking about how, you know, what a dynamic range of atmospheric effects one can achieve just through these different processes that are really largely used once a piece has already been bisfired, and then you know, it's a form of kind of reduction that you're seeing. So I want to open the floor to questions. Let's see if we have any questions. Just a second. Let's see. Let's see if we have any questions. doesn't appear that we have any questions from anybody. Okay, well, thank you all so much for joining us today. I hope that you learned a little bit more about these wonderful works. The show will be up through May 8th. And I will make sure, oops, we need a little bit of spotlighting. Okay, let me see here, just 1 second. Okay. I hope that everyone learned a little bit about these wonderful pieces. I wanted to quickly just point out a couple of upcoming events that we have. We will have a panel discussion as part of the Forms of Inheritance programming on Tuesday at 6:30. I'll be happy to drop a link to that in the chat. We're really fortunate to be able to host this event in conjunction with the University of Houston. The title is Ceramics and Geologic Time. We will have guests Khalil Robert Irving, Courtney Leonard, Anna Mayer, and Dr. Mika Tosca. So I encourage you all to join us on Tuesday evening at 6:30. And then following that, on Saturday, we have our Hands-On Houston to Go program from 11 to 1 that will be focusing on cyanotype composition. So I encourage you to come by, pick up a kit, and learn how to make your own cyanotypes. And look forward to catching you next time. Thanks, everybody.